We got an important question that we need to answer today. Timmy wrote in.
Timmy.
He's very concerned. Very concerned.
He's concerned?
He's usually pretty concerned, but today he's very concerned.
He's usually concerned.
Well,
he's just kind of, he's just getting through life.
He is. Like, and this is one of the ththings just holding him.
Like he's just probably, his only quiet time is on the toilet, probably. And because, like I said, the baby's crying, the wife's yelling.
He's taking 25-minute, number ones.
He's
or whatever,
taking a 25-minute. Yeah, he's just scrolling, and he's like, this idea popped into his head.
Yeah,
he hasn't played a game in a decade.
He's really concerned because he invested all this money into Kings of War.
Yeah. Well, he bought a Kickstarter.
He bought Kings of War because he was really upset about Warhammer Fantasy going away. So he needed to play some square-based stuff. And Mantic Games, offers a square-based game.
By play, you mean you wanted to buy and then know he was going to own it.
Yeah. But he's worried about his investment.
He's worried.
Yeah, he's worried that those models aren't good anymore.
Correct.
Because he wants to know if Old World being out for a whole year now, has it just obliterated or gotten rid of all the other square-based games? Are they gone, or are they
gone? Yeah.
Are they doing okay?
Yeah. Well.
So we need to put Timmy's mind at ease if we can.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I want to help him, but I got my own problems. There's not a lot I can do. Other than be nice when I see him.
So you can't offer him any assurances at all that it's going to be okay.
I mean, he has to ask himself: does he like games, or what? What is he in it for? He's.
Like a lot of people, he just wants to know the game he spent money on is doing okay.
Does it have to do okay?
He just wants to know.
He needs to know. It'll make him feel good. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. He's just at night like this or whatever, just eyes wide open, being like, oh man.
Is it probably going to be okay? Probably not, but... Probably not.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing.
Tell you what.
I haven't really heard the Kings of War even be brought up in the shop, probably in a long time.
Now this is something that I remind maybe viewers is again, I'm sure lots of games are great in lots of locales and whatever.
Yeah.
But again, our perspective is mostly this region that we call home. Many millions of people in 100 square miles or square kilometer, radius of 100 miles, and it is not a thing. It is it's played in a little bit here, a little bit there, but there's no massive community or market penetration. It's not on every shelf in any store. It's a couple store owners or people are fans, and they have maybe some stock.
A little section like this or whatever.
So, and even at its peak, I don't know, maybe a handful of stores are running a few events sometimes. I don't know if the square base niche really was seized or filled by anyone during that 10-year hiatus, at least around here. I think people continued to play a little bit at home, and
well, it was quite fractured, right? So you had
people.
I think there's no everyone was trying to seize the reins of a very small community in the first place. Let's be honest. We always preface this with going back 10 years in time here to we were very much heavily involved in our 10 million people area, running, organizing.
Yeah. Before the store, there was
doing all
ran
of
a tournament called Lords of War Weekend or something.
Doing all the Warhammer Fantasy Battle stuff, and so nobody, as far as I'm concerned, almost nobody has a better take on how healthy the game was, how many people were involved in the competitive side. I had a good insight just being with the company, how the sales were doing in North America, I'll reiterate again, even though it sounds brutal, it's not a big community. It never was. No. Unfortunately. No. And this is something that Games Workshop grappled with for many years. How do we get Warhammer Fantasy to be bigger? Because they wanted it to. They tried for 8 editions, right? Yeah. Ever since 40K came out, it was always the little tiny guy on the side that was trying to grow and do better, but was just kind of falling off to the side. Anyways, in the wake of this in 2015, a lot of dedicated still people and very people have spent years and years and years collecting these armies and playing it and loving the setting. were very fractured about what to do, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this in previous videos, like where they went. Like obviously, right off the bat, I'm just going to say like half of them just stopped and went and played other games because it's kind of like what you do, right? You just kind of like, well, I guess this game's gone.
I do remember in the first 5 years there was like a little bit of Kings of War, a little bit people. I mean, to no surprise, here at the store, this was an era where obviously 40K was still the biggest product, but we had like people playing Malifaux, we had people playing even like our Battlefront miniatures stuff was doing well. Infinity was like all these small, and then we were bought into lots of small games. We got into like Drop Zone and Drop Fleet, and we had some Frostgrave, and we had like some Wrath of Kings. We had like all these little games were like coming, Monster Apocalypse, like, and so it's like it's almost as if there was a pile of people just rotating through, trying to find the next, because they just like were like, well, there's no fantasy events or something going on, or stores aren't selling it anymore, so we're just gonna. I'm not gonna stop doing miniatures, so I'm gonna do something else. And there was this like little era,
like looking for a new home, almost
doing a new home, and then so I do remember Kings of War having a moment. I do. Some of the whatever you want to call them, hobby champions of the Warhammer Fantasy Battle community were like, well, let's do this. It's good too, right?
Sure. And then you had,
and then Song of Ice and Fire was like kind of the next up and coming one, and there was a little delay because I think people got all this stuff and it needed some time for some more factions and armies to release, and then it was a thing. It's still a little bit of a thing in a few places. And the last big one was that Conquest, the last Argument of Kings,
which was like, I want to say just pre-pandemic, probably.
It was already showing and releasing. Because I remember seeing they had a very, very impressive whatever you want to call it, studio
trade
table,
booth or whatever you want to call it,
at the several Adepticons where you walked by and you said, this looks really cool. Like the minis looked cool and everything looked neat. And I was like, oh, it's like a square-based army game. I was like, oh, interesting. I was like casually interested, and then I think it took some. That was like before it was like out into retailers and all that stuff. And now it's out, and I guess it's in a handful of stores.
A couple of major distributors carry it, so I mean that's always a sign that it's it's doing well. It's around.
Yeah, I'm yet to have anyone come and ask me about it or whether we carry it or are going to carry it. I mean, we can order it if someone wants, but it seems to have, like its predecessors, like the Kings of Wars and the Song of Ice and Fires, there's like a couple stores that have like taken a shot and built little communities around it. I think with us, once the old world was like, because the old world's been known as there's coming back for some time, I think that alone was enough to probably stymie its like launch and like talking about Conquest or any competitor from making
talking about our own experience, right? Where like I think we were probably like it was on our radar as something that we're like, I think this is something we could carry to fill a niche. And as soon as we found out that they were going to be returning to Old World, we're like, well, that checks that box for us.
It was it. That's it.
I don't like, and this is just like having the memory of like I can't shake the memories of like the experience we went through before. And the knowledge that like the square-based community was never huge, and like for a shop like ours, like we're not a huge store with like thousands and thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of customers. Like we have to be careful about what we bring in, and I think like in our minds at least, we're like probably one square-based game is plenty. For a shop our size. Right. And I imagine that like a number of places probably made that distinction.
It was hard to deny or to say, oh, we can have both or this. It was kind of like, oh, Games Workshop's coming back with this? Oh, we're okay. Like, let's see what that is because... And
at the time, we're like not knowing what Old World was going to be.
True.
I think both of us kind of thought, wow, they might be investing some bucks into this. Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is obviously going into a place that's very hypothetical. I think if Games Workshop had really spent the money and done like brand new models and like... Kislev and all this stuff, right? I think that could have been like a much more of a death knell to something like Conquest and Kings of War and
look, there's still time.
And that's the thing. There is still time.
Like at the trajectory Old World is moving at. I think it's like it's going to settle. It's going to settle into a certain. It's already settling a little bit, but as they push into the new, because like we said, the first phase is going to complete this year, whatever that means. Like the rest of the armies that are in the big books and the journals and the little whatever re-releases and battalions and army like for the core 9 armies, that's going to complete. And phase 2 is really, that's the exciting part. That's like, are they going for the death blows? Because if it sounds like is happening, this like heavily inferred Kislev thing. Like now you have Games Workshop making new plastic armies. I'm assuming will be plastic, new miniatures from one of their, super successful video games. I have a hard time feeling like any other rank and flank that isn't. I'm gonna take the historical games and put them aside because they're their own like genre. And
of course.
But anything that would be competing with Old World, I would struggle to how it could manage any foothold outside of its little like fiefdoms in some hobby stores. Like
and I guess like if I was to argue on their behalf, I would say. Conquest, the thing that Conquest has done smart, I think, is they've made their game very much not Warhammer.
Sure.
Just from like the factions and the theme and the style, it's very much not Warhammer looking.
It's not, yeah.
And I think that's probably a good thing if they're going to survive, right?
Yeah.
They're making their own fans that like their own lore, like their own aesthetic. Probably good. My case that I'll make for Mantic. I'm not a huge Mantic fan personally because like I always just kind of view them as like they're just trying to do the like low res version of like what
they're the barnacles on GW. They're just stuck to them like just for the ride.
But I'm going to make an argument for them. Being the barnacles, I think that ensures them a level of safety.
Oh yeah,
because like there's always going to be people that want like more for less.
Yeah.
And are happy with that, and I think they do that. They fit that niche pretty well. Like, if Warhammer comes back and Old World grows and is bigger than it's ever been before, I think Kings of War doesn't benefit because people are playing Kings of War. I think Kings of War benefits because more people want the lesses for more models, kind of thing. That's
the idea is the Old World could recruit new people again.
Yes.
And then those people might
look for alternatives or look for alternative models, right?
That's
so
the power.
That would be my.
That's what Games Workshop is. It's why it is the. It is also. It's like literally the sun in its because it provides. You know what I mean? Like, it's like consuming itself, but also radiating enough extra heat that other companies can live.
Yeah. And I think
if the sun goes out, they die too.
That's the way I think you got to look at it, right? Like, I think if you're those companies, like you almost like Old World could maybe be just good for you.
True.
And I think we've seen a lot of we've talked about how like a lot of our clients that are playing Old World and purchasing Old World things weren't doing anything for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like actually nothing. Like they weren't even hobbyists.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, even though there's alternatives.
Yeah. Like so there's this whole recaptured group of people that are now back in the hobby, collecting and building and painting. And like I said, like Jay said, there's always that potential that like there's leak off into other games that are similar or like that, right? So I think that's the case you have to make. Right now, I don't think any of those games are on life support, but like it's important to know that like they are very, in these like little tiny regions or pockets, and I think they require, and you could even make this argument about Old World to some degree, I think. Because of the size of the communities, they require that extra effort, I think, right? That hobby champion, that's like you said, that store owner that's really passionate about that product to really drive the sales. The stuff is not and may never be, but it's definitely not right now stuff you can just throw on your shelf and easily sell through the week or whatever. There's going to be that extra level of effort and requirement.
You need, whereas like, some Old World kits, the reason I have them is people just kind of roll in and pick them up. There's also another interesting thing that Old World, if you're an independent store, sort of works for you, and this is true for a bunch of Games Workshop products, is like their own Games Workshops don't even carry a lot of these things.
No.
Like there's the standard Warhammer store probably doesn't have half of the old world, but they have like
I think they have the journals regularly
journals,
and the
rule books, and maybe like a Tomb King army box or something.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think they. I think they basically just splash in the new releases and then that's it.
If that at all.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is another small advantage that we the Games Workshop has either intentionally or unintentionally given us, is that we get to be. They're like, they're probably intentionally are like, you guys can be.
You take the risk, man. Yeah, take the risk.
Take it all, and if it does well, good for you. That's good for us too, because we order more.
We kind of don't lose. Yeah. Either way.
So. Yeah.
It's funny. Just a complete side topic here that you brought up. It's funny how like their specialist games line or box games, whatever the hell you want to call them, like the Necromundas, the Blood Bowls, the Old World now. Like, people hate me for putting them in their heresy. How much like because of the lessons they learned in like the late 90s, early 2000s about like, we're just not going to carry that stuff. We have this great relationship with our trade. It's like we're going to let them blow their brains out. Yeah. And if they can go big or small with that stuff, and to be honest, it's kind of worked out great.
It has.
Like we have the option to carry like pretty big ranges of these products, and then it becomes a bit more special because like even the Warhammer stores don't have that stuff in there.
Yeah.
So
people are always shook when they're like, even the Warhammer stores.
You have every kit for Necromunda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of nuts, but we do. Yeah.
And the funny thing though is if like. From the sales data, as we looked at a few days ago, no, Games Workshop is right. There's a reason why they don't put those on their own shelf, because sometimes a new Blood Bowl team comes out and I sell 5 and I feel like that's exciting or whatever. The rest of the year and it's like nothing's happening. They know. And even having all the old world stuff on the shelf is cool and all, but it's not this killer thing. So I know some people we brought this up because some people in the comments were asking kind of about what's their deal with Conquest. And look, I get, this is another company that I have no ill will or anything about. I think they do things kind of the right way. The minis are made out of a solid material, well sculpted. I think they're injection molded. Like they invested money there. The rules are written by some, GW alumni. Like a lot of these, like if you think of the Trench Crusades, guys from that. I think it's Alessio Calvatore who wrote, or is the chief like game designer for that. He's well known. Of course, someone calls me right now, and so they have everything going for them. It sounds like they've gotten into distributors and this and that, and yet still I don't have it on my shelf because like it's. I mean, there's various reasons, but one of them, like we discussed, is like, at least we don't think that there's room for like 5, or we don't have room for more than one rank and flank game right now. And if we're gonna pick one, we're gonna pick one, that kind of started it all, right? So
I think ultimately we have to be really in touch and tune with what people that are coming into our store are looking for. And I think like it's hard for people that are really passionate about these games to realize like. It's the cold truth is like it's just not something that's in the conversation really, right? Like it's not something that we hear about much. It's not something that people are bringing up. It's not, so it's tough to kind of like put our faith in something new like that when.
I mean, look, here's the thing: is like I could spend whatever $1,000 or $2,000 on Conquest and take up all this shelf space, or you have the Eldar Phoenix Lord release that's incoming. Where I'm going to spend the same number of money and it's gone tomorrow. Like it's already it's like these are some of the decisions that come up here, right? Like you're just kind of like.
And I think like ultimately like just to kind of go follow that path down a little bit further is like if you have a couple extra $1,000 as a hobby store, you're like I really want to invest this into something new for the store. What you tend to look at categories of your business that are performing well, that have opportunity to increase.
Yeah.
So like more of a sure thing, right? So like for us, historically, it's been hobby supplies.
Yeah.
We really like have grown our hobby supplies section to the point where it's unreasonable or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's always a place we look first because historically, we have the data that tells us every time we do spend that money for us, and being very specific here for us, it tends to yield well. Pretty quickly too. So for us to look at something like Conquest or Kings of War, there's no data or history there that I can fall back on that's going to tell me like this is a great idea, right? I don't have any passionate people telling me they're going to be coming in the store and playing it. I don't have any rank and flank like data that tells me this is going to like be off the charts.
No, we have some data in the sense of like we used to have the whole Song of Ice and Fire lineup.
Sorry, but well, I guess I was trying to be nice. The data we have is kind of scary, to be honest. Like,
and it would have its little bumps here and there, and then it didn't go anywhere. And then before that, all those other little games I mentioned before, there's a reason we don't have them anymore.
Yes,
they had these like short lifespans, and it's just the climate we're in. It's like really, really hard. Whether it's the card world or the miniature world, to just wedge in and stay in now. And now the 3D. Now we got the Trench Crusaders.
Trench Crusade, what's up? What's up?
Shaking it up.
The Crusaders.
Like,
that's good.
I don't know how they're like. Conquest must be like holy crap or whatever. This silly little game.
They have no answer. Yeah.
Rolled in and it's all like printed and they don't. It's like they're literally selling just some STLs, and they've also got the like. Equivalent rule writers, and they're killing it. I don't know. There might be the era of trying to start up a traditional miniature company and thriving might be over.
That's why that's a good point. That's why I actually I feel bad because I want to have Conquest in the store. You know what I mean? In a weird way, because I think they're doing things the right way.
They are.
The way that I believe in, which is the distribution model, giving, not selling direct to customers, doing things like making the hard injection plastic. It's all stuff I love to see, but it's just I guess I've just seen too much. I guess that's my problem. I've just seen too much. It makes it difficult, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's funny, we might not carry a product, but we're still rooting for it.
Yeah.
We're kind of saving a space in our hearts for maybe one day if it can convince us. Convince us, guys. Give us some good reasons here. I'd love to hear some compelling arguments. Arguments of kings.
And look, to close that out. Unfortunately, this was also part of the comment. The 64 player Adepticon event for our game is not enough. It doesn't mean anything, unfortunately.
I don't like.
You can round up 50 people to be excited about anything anywhere.
This is a good garbage time topic because I think that's the reality. Yeah, you can't. This is going to be hard to hear if you're into one of those games and you participate and you feel like you're part of a thriving community. That does not translate into makes money for stores. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? It's correlation, not causation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Lots of games that don't sell in shops have great event attendance. Mm-hmm. We just had a local hobby store run a 32-person X-Wing tournament.
Right.
There's no X-Wing to buy.
There's none to buy.
That doesn't say anything about how healthy X-Wing is. No. It has nothing to do with it. Mm. All it says is we found 32 people that are willing to do this thing. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think the more niche you get, the more...
Well, those same guys are diehards, so they're going to go to the event.
You're already into... I think the thing is, the kind of mentality you have to be to already be into a pretty smaller miniature game. I think there's this survival mentality we've talked about before, where everyone has to become this flag bearer.
Yep.
Or standard bearer for that product because they realize how precarious it is for that company to exist, right? And I think that creates a more diehard atmosphere where everybody is showing up. Everybody shows up to everything. Everybody shows up. Mm-hmm. We got to show up. We got to show up. So that can kind of skew sometimes the numbers of how many people are actually participating in something. Whereas you get a company like Games Workshop, where 98% of the people are filthy casuals that just hobby in their basement and play with their friends or don't play at all and just paint figures. Meanwhile, they still have 800 people showing up to a tournament. Mm-hmm. But even that 800, it tells you very little. It tells you very little. It tells you very little about the actual economics. Yeah. Well, and on that, because I think that's the kind of it's hard to hear. But
sure.
Because everyone wants events to be this great indicator of success, and
it's it's not useless, but it is also you can't draw so many conclusions. You can be that's great.
I think what you can draw is you can say, wow, those event organizers are great. That's the conclusion you can draw.
No, I was.
What a great event! What great people!
all I'm saying is, I guess if Adepticon, OVO, and whatever Warhammer, all these like major Warhammer events always get like 1,000 or more people playing 40K, and then the next biggest game is like 150 people, then you can say like, well,
sure,
okay, 40K is clearly, but that's it. But that's not even that.
Well, you also
impressive, right? That's like you could just walk into a store.
We're well into garbage time here, but I will follow that down a little bit further if you let me. You also can't just even make that comparison, because like you might get like 800 people playing in the competitive 40K tournament. But then you also have like 16 side events for 40K that are also full, that are all probably still bigger than the one tournament that they managed to muster for a small game, right? So just think, I mean, like I don't want to use that data because it's not super helpful.
I'm just saying it's like
it's not nothing.
It's 10% useful, 90% not useful.
That's fair.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. And if you haven't been to an event like Adepticon, you do get that wow factor where it's like, man, you realize just how big the GW fan base is compared to everything else.
Yeah,
because you gotta like,
you're like, oh, GW put on a show and some other people got to stick to it or show up.
That's what it feels like, right? Yeah. It's almost like, well, 40K put on a show and everybody else got to show up. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
they got to tailgate and show up their little stalls next to it and be like, hey.
Hope you guys enjoyed that one. It was fun for us to make. If you have any great ideas for videos like this, we love to hear from our Patreons. So you can subscribe for as little as $3 a month, and you can ask us questions on there, and you have more direct kind of like conversation with us. We really appreciate all of you wonderful people. And hey, if you don't want to spend money, that's great too. You can always just subscribe, and that helps us out as well. We appreciate you guys. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.